Hey guys, how's it going? I finally got my car out of storage. So here's a video you guys been waiting for. Me actually talking about the build in person and everything. Okay, so the origin of this car, it's a high mileage 2000 323i. The current mileage is at 211,000 miles. Now this is a Florida car, so the body is in very good shape. Hard to see. My lighting's not the best in here, hence all the LED lights around the engine bay. But my goal was to show people how reliable, even at high mileage, these engines can be. So yeah, before even the turbo build came, I spent at least $4 grand restoring the car, suspension components, all the common oil leaks, clunks, lights, all that. All the speakers are blown, just a bunch of miscellaneous things. So before turbo kit came, mild restore to get the car to perform like how they would from the factory. I always have loved these chassis and never seen myself owning one. I realized how cheap they actually are, so I got one. And actually building, you know, my dream build, which is boosting the car. This is actually my first ever turbo build, so I learned a lot. I learned by doing, so yeah, I got a lot of experience. Starting out with a more difficult car to turbo was a great move on my part, because I learned so much. So any other car, I feel confident I could, not easily turbo, but turbo, from what I have learned. Because these aren't the easiest car to turbo. I mean, there's a lot of things going on here. Some electrical components can be kind of confusing, but you get through that and learn as you work. So yeah, that's the origin of the car. The turbo kit I used is the CX Racing turbo kit, and that includes the turbo manifold. Actually, let me restart that. The CX Racing kit, everything fit nice. No modification needed. The turbo manifold bolted right on. Really good spacing for the turbo. There's no modification I did to the kit that I've done to the kit. I've seen people buying the eBay turbo kits, and there's all modification, including spacing of the manifold from the head and all that. None of that BS with this kit. Okay, anyway, so the kit came with the turbo manifold, the turbo. It included the 2.5-inch downpipe, included a 3-inch downpipe, which V-bands to that one. It takes up about almost half of the exhaust. I don't want to say half, so a little bit less than half. That all fit great. It cleared everything. Bolts right up. The turbo included is a GT35 knockoff, which I have the specs right here. It's a GT35. It has a T3 exhaust housing. It's an anti-surge. An actual anti-surge, so it actually, you know, does what it's supposed to. It has the holes in it. It has the nice valley through here to help, you know, suppress a surge. The compressor is an aspect ratio of 70, and the turbine is an aspect ratio of 63. Now the compressor wheel is an 82 millimeter, and the turbine wheel is a 62 millimeter. So in Garrett's terms, that would be, this turbo was considered a 70-63. It is oil and water cooled. Now this turbo, I'm pretty impressed with it. It being a CX Racing, sort of a Chinese knockoff. It's actually a very nice turbo. It comes balanced. Where is it at here? So you can see where I'll zoom in. You can see where they shaved the nut right there for balancing. So they actually took a time on this turbo. It's all balanced and everything. It's a really good turbo. It spools pretty well. So they did a good job pairing the turbo with this kit, because it spools about 3K, 3.5. I'd probably get most boosts at 3.5K, but it starts spooling at as low as 27 sometimes to 3,000, depending on how aggressive you're driving. What's also included in the CX Racing kit is a bunch of pre-bent intercooler piping, which fit, no modification needed, and the intercooler, which fit nice. They even give you these brackets. A lot of people will bend this bracket to 90 to utilize this hole, but I actually just went straight down from this hood latch here and grabbed that bracket and bolted it. And they also include 2 more lower brackets. I just used these studs. There's studs here. The lower one, I had to cut them a little bit, bend the bracket up around, so that fit nice. I painted all the intercooler piping in black, because I'm not really a big fan of chrome, so it looks more clean, I think. And the CX Racing Turbo Kit also included miscellaneous hoses and gaskets, which I did not use because they're fairly cheap. I wanted quality parts, so I sourced my own gaskets and hoses. Like, for instance, this oil feed line. It is a Rally Road top mount turbo oil feed line, but I bought it through Mike Dodge at seemslegitgarage.com because I love giving him business. He's a great guy. Also, this is fed from the lower Vanos hose with a special banjo bolt that Rally Road makes, also sourced from Mike Dodge. So yeah, that's on there. I just used the restrictor that came with the turbo. It needs to be a little bit smaller because I am seeing some oil in the inlet of the turbo and some out of the exhaust. Only well under wide open throttle. So I need to revise my restrictor. The coolant lines, I mean, supplied. I had to bend them up to work a little bit. We'll get more into the routing of that later. But anyway, the exhaust all fit great. No modifying of the turbo manifold. Nothing worried about there. Nothing worried about the intercooler piping. Also, the cheap hardware, like the blow-off valve, is a, quote me if I'm wrong, I believe it's a Type S by Greddy, I think. Just a quick brainstorm. It's a knockoff. It's junk. It's fully tightened because they will leak under boost sometimes. Also, the wastegate's cheap. That is a knockoff of a Tile F38. I will be getting a good wastegate and good blow-off valve eventually. Yeah, so that's basically the only downfall of that kit is just the cheap accessories included. The turbo, like I said, I'm very impressed. They did well with matching it for this car, or with a kit in general. People like to, say, "Oh, it's a 323. Why'd you waste this money on 323?" Well, believe it, I mean, it's everything you see here can be bolted to the engine of a 330. So when it comes time to rebuild or swap the engine, all the parts will go right back on. The blocks pretty much identical. Actually, I think they are identical blocks. But the head's a little different, I believe, obviously. But yeah, that's pretty much it with the CX Racing Turbo Kit. No complaints, really, besides the cheap hardware. Everything was spot on. I'd give it a 5 out of 5 on review-wise. The price for that was about $1,800 shipped. So that's pretty dang good for everything, how it fit. Okay, what's next on my list here? Let's see. I'm going off a list because I can't remember what to say half the time, so excuse me. The fuel system. Okay, we have a Phoenix Industries fuel pressure regulator. It's a very nice piece of machinery there. A lot of people don't know about Phoenix Industries. I found them through actually eBay, which people don't, will down talk eBay, but there's actually good stuff on there if you look. I believe they're based in California. They make all kinds of cool AN fittings and stuff. So definitely check them out. Very, very nice people who work there. No complaints. So yeah, we're using their FPR, which is a nice, like I said, nice piece of machinery. It's good quality. That was like $130, I think. So you get what you pay for. So I try not to cheap out too much. But that is, I'm really impressed with that piece right there. They also pair it with a Marshall gauge, which is also spot on. It's a nice little gauge. The fuel pump is a genuine Walbro 255, which is good for up to 18 psi boost. And I will be running genuine Bosch Green Giant 440cc injectors. They're also good for 18, I believe, or 14, I forget. But right now it's just stock injectors. I bought a set of cheap aftermarket injectors, 440cc, but like I said, I don't want to cheap out on those, especially fuel system. That's very important. You don't want to have the fuel injectors not flowing properly, So let's just get rid of the junk ones. They're over there sitting on my tool cart, not getting used. I'm going to buy genuine Bosch. I know it's hard to spend money sometimes, but you just got to do what you got to do and make sure your car's going to run appropriately. What we have next here, the spark plugs and ignition. This one no one really covers. The stock ignition coils are very well capable of boosts, unless you're going for high horsepower. No need to change them; they're great. As far as spark plugs go, 1 second, I will show you what they are. This is my little goodie bag out of this car. I cleaned it out real quick. This is recommended by a lot of people in multiple BMW models for boost. We have an NGK BKR7E in the car, and they're gapped. I wrote it down on here somewhere at a 0.024 gap. So I believe that's 24 thousandths. Very thin gap because under boost it will sometimes blow the spark out. So you want it to, lessen your gap. So less chance of that. Good plugs. They're copper, so they burn hotter. Sacrifice life, but copper's the way to go when it comes to boost. Okay, and as far as tuning goes, guys are asking about that a lot. The stock DMEs in these MS42, MS43 are very tunable. Don't need to do a piggyback or anything. I'm gonna be getting a remote tuned by a friend, so we're gonna be getting that done. I guess you could use a piggyback, but they often like to fight with the stock ECU and field trims and stuff. Lots of side effects. I mean, sometimes if you know what you're doing, you'll want to tune them both together. That's mainly for DIY tuning and stuff. But the best solution is just to tune off the stock DME. This is gonna be an MS42. The Siemens MS42. MS43 is also great. The MS45 cars, I heard they can be hard to tune. Not a lot of guys do them, so people will usually try to convert, I guess. I'm not too sure on that. I'm not highly knowledgeable on the DME's versions and all that, but I know they're very highly tunable, the MS42, MS43. So clear up any speculation, because I see a lot of guys getting this information wrong online. This engine is an M52 TUB25, which is, you know, they're very stout. Very stout engines. They last a long time, hence the mileage 211,000, and it's taking boost like a champ. The M54, another great engine. A little more problems like the oil pump nut backing off, but this one does suffer that problem too sometimes. It's all about the engine harmonics. That chain gets slapped around in there and it just backs off the nut. So it's always a good idea to upgrade the oil pump, you know, or get the nut with the wire on it to reinforce it, doesn't back off on you. So yeah, that's my take on that. And another thing on here is going to be vacuum routing. Now, what you can do on these cars to get a good source of vacuum, you can splice into your brake booster hose. Okay, you're going to have two check valves, one in the brake booster and one in line right here. I think they call it a suction jet pump, but you can just delete that because you already have one check valve. I utilize that for blow-off vacuum. I mean, what I would personally do, if I would redo this, I'm probably going to come in rebuild time. I'm probably going to put a vacuum block in there so I can, you know, have a bunch of ports. The vacuum for the FPR is from behind the intake manifold, one of those ports back there. So that's a good source of vacuum. And the vacuum for my boost gauge, take this cover off, is supplied from the vacuum distribution rail, which is right here for the CCV. Under low boost applications, it won't leak. But under high boost, it will leak. So a lot of guys will just cap off all the ports for this and remove this real completely. Left it on there because I'm utilizing it. Because this thing's only going to be seeing low boost for the mileage. I'm just going to... Okay, so what else we have here? We have the DISA valve. That's a big discussion. The DISA valve with forced induction is basically not needed. So for now, once I get a blanking plate and get it tuned out, I took out the flap in that. I just ran a bolt through the hole. It's going to be really hard to see. Let me get my light down. I just ran a... I'll zoom in if I can. Okay, you can see it. Okay, so there's the back side of the bolt with the nut. The bolt is running through the inside and it comes out, and so that's the back side of the bolt there. So that's tightened down in there, no vacuum leaks. I did a boost leak test a few days ago on it. So if you do that, you'll avoid a check engine light or any... Well, I actually don't have any check engine lights because I already have a tuned DME. Let me back out here. But it's not tuned for boost yet. So yeah, if you just leave it plugged in, delete the flap and block it off, or just get a block out plate, whatever, you'll avoid error codes. Because it really can't monitor the flap. It's a mechanical piece. As long as it senses some kind of activity from this, it'll just say it's okay through the diagnostic system. Same thing. Oh, this is a big one too. On my car being a 99, I had a 3.2, what's called a 3.2 valve, which I just have in my right here in my engine bay. This is up underneath the car. Okay, this is on a 323. So I had this earlier. Excuse me, I can't freaking speak today. Apparently, early E46s had this up underneath the car by your fuel filter. This is where your stock fuel pressure regulator goes, in that little hole right there. And then what this does is it directs fuel flow. So I just put it in the engine bay, left it plugged in. Same thing as a DISA. It realizes it's there, and it just avoids any error lights. I'll probably get that mapped out too. But that's originally up underneath the car by the fuel filter. 3.2 valve. Newer cars don't have that. Also, the M54 cars, like 325s and 330s, your fuel filter is boost ready. The fuel pressure regulator is built onto it. And that's actually ready for boost. There's really no modifying this. You want to upgrade your fuel filter and then get it, you know, up to you. Depending on what you want to do. I'll tell you more about that later. If you just have any questions, let me know. So that's basically it. It's very simple. The car's only 3 PSI right now. The only tune on the DME is... The DME itself is from Mike Dodge. Once again, seems legit, garage.com. He sells all kinds of goodies. You can supply your oil feed. You can tune some DMEs, but not for boost. Just for emissions elites, you know, for the sap and everything. So the sap has to be deleted, obviously, to fit the turbo kit and everything. But yeah, he sells a lot of cool stuff. Check him out. Definitely highly recommend him. Okay, so let's see here. Crankcase vent. We just have a, you know, basic 7/8 hose coming off here. Reduced to a 3/4 inch. And that just goes into the fender well for now. Until I get a catch can to fit in there again. I did have a small catch can, but I don't think it was breathing well enough, so I upsized the vent. Also built this heat shield right here out of aluminum. It's double layered. I don't know if you can really make it out, but it's double layered heat shield in there. Yeah, you can see 2 layers. Everything's all heat wrapped, DEI brand heat sleeving for the oil feed. Upper rad hose is heat sleeved. The hot side intercooler piping is sleeved. Now that stuff is designed to hold heat in, so I did not want to wrap the cold side. That would look kind of tacky anyway. But it just helps with heat soak. It holds heat in, also helps avoid heat going in. So I only heat wrapped the hot side. Heat wrapped the header, that's a big one. The turbo manifold is what I meant. Heat wrap that, heat wrap all your down piping. Turbo blanket, that's pretty important to prevent your valve cover from melting, which is going to happen anyway a little bit, because it gets really hot underneath there. So an upgrade usually people do is M56 valve cover. But unfortunately, I just bought this valve cover during the restore of this car before turbo, so I spent like $340 on that genuine valve cover, so I didn't want to get rid of it. For now, if it melts, whatever, I guess I'll have to do the conversion eventually anyway. Okay, now the coolant lines for the turbo, they are sourced from, let me get a light and I'll show you. Shit, scratching the fuck out of my hood. Okay. This coolant line from the turbo, it runs down into the lower radiator hose. Really hard to see. But spliced into the lower rad hose is one of those coolant temp couplers. So what I did was I took the aluminum coupler, drilled it out, and tapped it for my barb fitting, which happened to be an M14 by 1.5 thread. So I just screwed that fitting into the coolant temp sensor coupler and ran my AN hose off of that. So that sealed up good with a copper washer. And then this side coolant hose runs down. It's hard to see. You're going to lose the visual of it. You can see it running down right there. That goes to the block drain for coolant, which its size is also an M14 1.5. So I bought a 2-pack of those barbs, and I use them both really nicely. Worked out really good. The oil drain for the turbo is fire sleeved. You can see it's red. That runs down to the oil pan at the highest possible point. So I'm going to revise that come engine rebuild time, and I'm going to drain that into the timing cover, which will be a lot more efficient, a lot less area for the oil to travel back into its source. So we're going to do that eventually. But yeah, I have that bung for the oil return as high as I possibly could. I took the oil pan off. Very important. Please don't drill your oil pan with the oil pan still in the car, because I don't care who you are, you're not going to get all those freaking shavings out. Just don't be lazy. Drop your subframe. Take out the oil pan. You'll feel a lot better, a lot more confident. So I just highly advise you just do it that way. So we're running an AEM Yugo 2, I think it is. AFR gauge, very nice gauge, that's right in the car. There's the decal for the Phoenix Industries. There's the decal for the Turbo Smart. That's my boost controller, the low manual one. The boost controller T is what they call it. I'm going to plumb that in once I get my other wastegate and come tuning time, so I can adjust my boost levels. But for now, we're only running 3-pound spring. So here's the hose coming from the turbo housing, and it runs down underneath the car to the wastegate. I have that sleeved with some heat sleeving and additional DEI sleeving. You see it down there. And we're also going to be using, when it comes to the MAF, the mass airflow sensor, you can run an HPX PMAS MAF, which I actually have one, but my tuner says for my power level I'm only going to need a 330 MAF. This is still a stock 323, which isn't very, it's not very boost friendly. It has like a max of maybe 8 PSI, I'm not sure. Very low PSI, maybe even 7. So a 330 MAF, I believe, peak. It all depends also on, not so much PSI, but on the flow rate. So that's a big discussion there. The reason why I think I'm getting so much power at only 3 PSI is the flow rate of this turbo is very large, so it's really pumping air out. I mean, 3 PSI can literally probably blow harder than that, but, it's just how much it's actually pushing out into the engine, and yeah, it runs pretty good. And as far as oil goes, we're running Rotella T6 540 weight. It's actually right here. Very good oil, high heat resistance for diesel engines. And I haven't had a problem with it. I will be getting an oil cooler, which is a huge must. I'll be buying my oil cooler cap from Mike Dodge used. He does not sell them, but he's going to give me his off his old setup. So it's a hack engineering oil cap. It's gonna go right here, and then the AN lines branch off. They run down. I'm gonna install the oil cooler right here, above the intercooler. Quick little thing to show you. I cut out the mesh, a nice rectangle for better airflow, because I had the complete mesh. I had the whole way out, but it looked incomplete and kind of just weird seeing those little tabs in there. So I got the best of both worlds, and I just cut a rectangle out of the mesh. I think it looks a lot freaking cleaner. The M3 rep is a good way to go because it gives you lots of room to play with down there if you need it. But all in all, even the factory impact strip behind it, there's lots of room to fit a big old intercooler. So yeah, that's pretty much it for that. I also have a wire tuck done. So you can see that took about a week of wiring and about 100 feet, I want to say, of extending wires. So I ran it through this channel right here. You can see it. And it runs through this nice square body through here. And then they exit out of there. And they go to the accessory. They go to power their accessories from there. Same on this side. It's a little harder to get to, but it's down in there. Hard to see. But it's down in there, right there. It's that channel right there. Like I said, it's really hard to see. But they also run through there and exit right there. I was more worried about this side due to heat reasons. You do not want wires melting from the turbo. So I tucked it and it just looks a lot cleaner. It looks so clean. I love wire tucks. I will be putting the cabin air filter tray back on eventually. I was just part of the wire tuck and engine bay tuck. I'm going to put all these gaskets back on, everything around the engine. Also wire tucked the ignition harness that goes to the hole I drilled into the firewall cover, I guess you'd call it, and it comes out the AC. That's another thing, I had to delete the AC. I didn't mind because it's just a weekend car, so I utilized what I could from the AC delete and utilized those holes. I think AC lines came through there, I'm pretty sure they did. So all my O2 sensor wires and the ignition harness comes in from underneath the vanity cover. It's heat wrapped and just tucks and runs through there. So as far as deleting things, I had to delete the sap, the washer fluid bottle. You could put that in the trunk if you wanted to. I also deleted the air conditioning system because those metal lines for the high and low pressure side will not clear or work with this unless you get them, you know. Would have had to get them bent and custom made, but that's just a lot of hassle. And this just being a weekend fun car, project car, I don't ever use the AC, you know, so it is what it is. Still have heat, so heat's good to also help keep coolant temps down. Blast your heat, get some heat away from the engine. Yeah, that's pretty much my setup, guys. I'm sorry for the once again, I'm sorry for the lighting in here. It's not the greatest. I'm working with what I have. But that is basically my turbo setup on my car. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.